Hello everyone, and welcome to this comprehensive analysis of the 2023 MOVEit Transfer Security Breach. My name is Abdurrahman Mohammed, and today we are diving deep into an event that redefined our understanding of supply chain vulnerabilities. Occurring primarily between May and June of 2023, this incident centered on a critical flaw known as CVE2023-34362. While MOVEit Transfer was marketed as a secure way for organizations to handle sensitive data, this specific vulnerability turned that trust into a massive liability. Over the next few minutes, we will explore the technical root causes, the timeline of the attack, the sophisticated threat actors involved, and the lasting lessons for the cybersecurity community. This case study isn't just about a single bug, it's about the systemic risks inherent in our modern, interconnected digital infrastructure. To understand the gravity of this breach, we must look at its sheer scale. The exploitation began quietly on May 27, 2023, but the ripple effects were felt for months. By October of that same year, the count of victimized organizations surpassed 2,000. We aren't just talking about small businesses. These victims included government agencies, healthcare giants, and major financial institutions. The human cost was even higher, with an estimated 60 million individuals seeing their sensitive personal data exposed. With a total financial toll reaching nearly $10 billion, this event earned the title of the, quote, largest hack in recent history, just 3 months after it was first detected. It serves as a stark reminder that a single vulnerability in a widely used service can trigger a global economic and privacy crisis. The technical heart of this disaster was a critical SQL injection vulnerability. In simple terms, SQL injection allows an attacker to trick a database into running unauthorized commands. In the case of MOVEit, the flaw existed in how the application handled certain email-related queries, specifically within the user-get-users with email address function. Because the application didn't properly sanitize the data it was receiving, attackers could bypass the entire login process. This wasn't just about reading data, it provided a pipeline for remote code execution, or RCE. This meant that an unauthenticated person, someone with no username or password, could remotely take control of the MOVEit server environment. Once inside, they could deploy malicious scripts known as web shells to maintain a permanent backdoor into the victim's network. Using the OWASP framework, we can categorize the devastating impact of this SQL injection across the 4 pillars of security. First is confidentiality. These databases held a goldmine of sensitive data, including bank details and national insurance numbers. Second is authentication. Attackers could impersonate any user, gaining full system access without ever needing a password. Third is authorization. By manipulating the database, hackers could change their own permission levels, granting themselves administrative rights to parts of the system they should never see. Finally, there is integrity. This attack wasn't read-only. The hackers had the power to modify or delete critical files, meaning that even if the data wasn't stolen, it could no longer be trusted. This total compromise is why SQLI remains one of the most dangerous threats in cybersecurity today. The timeline of the MOVEit breach is a study in rapid escalation. It began during the 2023 Memorial Day weekend, when a customer noticed strange activity. By May 31st, Progress Software disclosed the zero-day vulnerability and rushed out patches. However, the damage was already being done. On June 2nd, the flaw was officially designated with a 9.8 out of 10 severity rating, signaling its extreme danger. Shortly after, Microsoft's threat intelligence team identified the culprit, the Clop ransomware group. By June 5th, the first major household names began to fall, including the BBC and British Airways. Crucially, these organizations were hit through a supply chain attack. They didn't even use MOVEit themselves, but their payroll provider Zealous did. This showed how one weak link could break an entire chain of companies. As we moved into mid-June, the situation turned into a high-stakes extortion game. On June 6th, the Clop group threatened to leak stolen data unless victims contacted them by June 14th. In response, the U.S. government took the rare step of offering a $10 million reward for information linking these actors to a foreign government. But while the legal battle raged, a technical nightmare was unfolding. Intensive code reviews by firms like Huntress began uncovering even more holes in the MOVEit software. A second critical SQL injection was found on June 9th, followed by a third on June 15th, and 3 more in early July. This meant that even organizations that patched immediately in May had to go through several more rounds of emergency updates as more vulnerabilities came to light. The group behind this, known as Clop or TA505, is a highly organized criminal enterprise active since 2019. They are much more than typical script kiddies. CLOP operates as an initial access broker, meaning they break into networks and sell that access to other criminals. They are also sophisticated enough to develop their own custom zero-day exploits. What made the MOVEit attack unique was their choice of tactics. Instead of using traditional ransomware to lock or encrypt files, they focused purely on data exfiltration. They stole the data first, then threatened to publish it on their dark web leak site. They even claimed they would delete any data stolen from government websites to avoid drawing too much international law enforcement heat, a calculated, business-like approach to cybercrime. The primary weapon CLOP used once they gained access was a custom web shell named LEMURLOOT16. This malicious script was typically hidden in the server's web root directory under the file name human2 ASPX17. Once active, LEMURLOOT gave the attackers a manager's view of the entire system. It could list every folder, steal Azure Cloud storage keys, and run database queries to find the most valuable data. To save bandwidth and avoid detection, the shell would gzip or compress the stolen files before sending them back to the attackers. Perhaps most dangerously, it allowed the hackers to create their own administrator accounts. This meant that even if the original SQL vulnerability was fixed, the hackers could still log in through the front door using their new, official credentials. Fixing the MOVEit breach was incredibly difficult for several reasons. First was the lack of visibility. Many companies didn't even know they were at risk because they didn't use MOVEit themselves. Their vendors did. This created a web of interconnected risks, where a breach at one company could affect thousands of others. Second was the complexity of the, attack surface. Because MOVEit was used by so many different types of organizations, there was no one-size-fits-all way to secure it. Finally, there was a human problem. Despite the global news coverage and the available patches, some firms simply failed to update their systems. This highlights a major lesson. A patch is only effective if it is actually installed. The delay in response gave attackers months of extra time to roam through vulnerable networks. To prevent a repeat of the MOVEit disaster, organizations must adopt a layered defense. The first and most obvious step is immediate patching. If a patch cannot be applied right away, you should use firewall rules to block all HTTP and HTTPS traffic on ports 80 and 443 to cut off external access. Beyond that, security teams should manually inspect their web root folders for suspicious files like backup, ASPX, or human2 ASPX. We also recommend enhanced logging and auditing to catch unusual SQL errors before they turn into full breaches. Finally, implementing network segmentation is vital. By isolating critical data, you ensure that even if an attacker breaks into one part of your system, they can't easily move sideways to steal your most valuable information. Security is a process, not a single product.